The morning sun cast long shadows across New Busan's central plaza as Hanbi skipped along the crystal pathways. At 8 years old, she was the youngest resident of the human diplomatic compound, and everyone's favorite. Her bright yellow dress bounced with each step as she made her way to her favorite spot. The garden where both earth plants and alien flowers grew together. Hanbi, don't forget your data tablet. Her father, Director Song Jinwoo, called from their apartment's window. She turned and waved, her small hand clutching a silver device that looked too big for her. The year was 2184, and humans had been part of the galactic community for 3 decades. New Busan stood as a symbol of cooperation between Earth and the Keldari Federation. The city itself was a beautiful mix of human and alien architecture, gleaming towers of steel and glass next to the flowing crystal structures preferred by the Keldari. Hanbi loved living here. Unlike many diplomatic children, she didn't find it hard to make friends. She spoke both Korean and English, and her translator device helped her chat with alien children. To her, they weren't aliens. They were just friends who looked different. "Good morning, small song." The security eye's voice came from a nearby speaker. The AI had given her this nickname, and she loved it. "Would you like to hear today's weather report?" "Yes, please." Hanbi sat on a bench, swinging her legs. She liked how the AI talked to her like a real person, not a child. "Clear skies all day. Perfect for the diplomatic reception this evening," the AI said. "Your father has asked me to remind you to stay in the public areas today. Many ships are landing with important visitors." Hanbi nodded seriously. She knew about the reception. It was all her parents had talked about for weeks. The Keldari were bringing their highest military commander to discuss trade routes and security. Her father had been stressed, spending long hours in meetings. As she sat in the garden, she watched the ships landing at the nearby spaceport. They were beautiful, like silver birds gliding down from the sky. The Keldari ships were her favorites, with their crystal-like hulls that changed color in the sunlight. A group of alien children played nearby with a floating ball that changed shape as they touched it. Hanbi recognized Tiro, the Keldari child she often played with. She waved, but today Tiro seemed different. Nervous, even scared. "Want to play?" Hanbi called out, but Tiro shook his head and hurried away with the others. Strange. They were usually happy to include her. Later that afternoon, while recording a video diary on her tablet, something her mother encouraged to help her practice her languages, Hanbi saw something odd. In a service corridor not far from the garden, a Keldari official was meeting with someone she'd never seen before. The stranger wore a plain gray suit, but what caught her attention was the case they exchanged. It glowed with a sickly green light that her tablet's camera captured clearly. Hanbi didn't mean to record them. She was just making her usual diary entry, talking about the flowers and the ships she'd seen. But her tablet recorded everything when it was on, a safety feature her parents had insisted on. "Look," she whispered to her tablet, zooming in on the strange case. "The box is glowing like the deep-sea creatures Mom showed me in her Earth books." She didn't understand what she was seeing, but she knew it was important. The way they looked around, how they kept their voices low, reminded her of spy movies her older cousin loved to watch. That evening, as the diplomatic reception began in the main hall, Hanbi sat in her room, replaying the recording. The tablet's AI had automatically tagged and categorized it, as it did with all her videos, but this one had been marked with a red flag. Security interest. She should tell her father, she decided. He always said that if she saw anything strange, she should let him know right away. But first, she needed to get ready for the reception. Her mother had laid out a new blue dress for her. She was allowed to attend the first hour to practice being a proper diplomat's daughter. As she changed clothes, Hanbi didn't notice the shadow that passed by her window. A shadow that shouldn't have been possible on the 20th floor. She didn't know that her innocent recording had set in motion events that would change the galaxy's view of humanity forever. The reception waited below, and with it, the last normal moments of her life. The diplomatic reception filled the main hall with light and sound. Humans and aliens mixed together, their voices creating a steady hum of conversation. Master General Vex, the highest military commander of the Caldari, stood tall among the guests. His crystal armor caught the light and sent rainbow patterns across the walls. Hanbai walked through the crowd in her blue dress. She held her tablet close, still thinking about the strange video she had recorded. Several times she tried to reach her father, but he was always surrounded by important people. She didn't want to interrupt. She had been taught good manners. "Excuse me, young one." A deep voice made her turn. Master General Vex looked down at her, his silver eyes glowing softly. "You are Director Song's daughter, correct?" Hanbai nodded politely and bowed, just as she had been taught. "Yes, sir. I'm Hanbai. I saw you in the garden earlier today," Vex said. His voice was friendly, but something in it made Hanbai want to step back. "You spend much time there, recording your videos?" Hanbai's hand tightened on her tablet. "Yes, sir. I make diary videos to practice my languages." "How interesting." Vex looked at the tablet, then back at her. "Would you show me some of your videos? I'm curious about how young humans see our world." Before Hanbai could answer, her mother called her from across the room. "Hanbai, time for bed, sweetheart." "I'm sorry, sir. I have to go," Hanbai said, bowing again. As she turned away, she didn't see Vex's friendly smile fade into something cold and hard. Later that night, Hanbai lay in bed, unable to sleep. The reception was still going on below. She could hear the music. Her tablet sat on her desk, its screen dark. She had tried to show her father the strange video, but he had been too busy. Tomorrow morning, he had promised, kissing her forehead. A soft click made her sit up. Her window was opening, but that was impossible. They lived too high up. A shake moved in the darkness. "Hello." Hanbai's voice shook. "Security AI, lights please." There was no response. The AI was silent. The shake moved closer. Hanbai saw the gleam of crystal armor. "Master General Vex." "I'm sorry, child." His voice wasn't friendly anymore. "But we can't let anyone know about what you saw today." Hanbai ran for the door, but another Caldari was there, blocking her way. She screamed for her parents, for help, for anyone. But the reception's music covered her cries. The next morning, Director Song walked through the garden, worried. Hanbai hadn't been in her room when her mother went to wake her. The security AI was acting strangely, repeating that it needed maintenance. He found her by the fountain, lying among the flowers she loved so much. She looked peaceful, as if sleeping. Her tablet was gone. The medical team said it was an accident, a rare reaction to Caldari crystal pollen. They said she wouldn't have felt any pain. But Director Song saw the marks on her neck, too precise for accident. The security AI came back online an hour later. It had recorded everything. In his office, Director Song watched the video from the AI's cameras. He saw his daughter's last moments, saw how they made it look like an accident, saw how they took her tablet and erased the evidence she had found. But they didn't know about the AI. Didn't know that every camera, every sensor in the diplomatic compound had been recording. Didn't know that human AIs were programmed to protect children above all else, even from their own shutdown commands. With shaking hands, Director Song sent 2 messages. The first went to Earth's Parliament, marked highest priority. It contained the AI's recordings and a simple request: justice. The second went to his wife. Take the first ship home. What's coming isn't for civilians to see. In orbit, the Caldari ships continued their peaceful patrol. Master General Vex prepared to leave the planet, satisfied that a small problem had been solved quietly. They had no idea what they had just started. The Caldari understood power. They understood politics. They understood war. But they didn't understand what it meant to kill a human child. They were about to learn. The Earth Parliament building in Geneva was usually quiet at night, but not tonight. Every seat was full. The huge screens on the walls showed Hanbai's face, a school photo taken 3 months ago, showing her bright smile. Admiral Park Sun-me stood before the Parliament, her white uniform crisp and perfect. She had just watched the security eyes recording of Hanbai's murder. Her hands were tight fists at her sides. The Keldari Federation claims this was an accident, the Parliament speaker said. His voice shook with anger. They refuse to hand over Master General Vex or his accomplices. They say we are overreacting. Another member added. They don't understand why the death of one child matters so much. Admiral Park looked at Hanbai's photo again. Then we will make them understand. The vote was quick. In the history of Earth's Parliament, few decisions had ever been this unanimous. Admiral Park received her orders directly. Full military mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, the entire fleet. In her office after the vote, Admiral Park called up the fleet numbers on her screen. 300 main battle cruisers, 100 Ghost-class stealth destroyers, 50 carrier ships, 50 support vessels, thousands of fighter craft. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Since joining the galactic community, Earth had never shown its full military strength. Other species thought humans were weak because they preferred peace. That was about to change. Send the call, Admiral Park ordered. I want every ship ready in 48 hours. Across Earth and its colonies, ships began to move. The Ghost-class destroyers, Earth's secret weapons, broke from their hidden bases. These ships could turn invisible, something the Keldari thought was impossible. On her flagship, the Lightning Sword, Admiral Park received a message from the Keldari High Council. She read it aloud to her bridge crew. Your response is illogical. The death of one child does not warrant military action. We suggest you reconsider. The bridge crew grew quiet. They all knew what was coming. Send our reply, Admiral Park said. Her words were simple. You killed the wrong species child. At the New Busan colony, Director Song watched the ships gathering in orbit. The Keldari diplomats were nervous now. They had expected angry words, perhaps trade sanctions. Not this. Not hundreds of warships appearing from every direction. The Keldari Federation finally realized something was wrong. They sent a small defense fleet, 20 ships, to maintain peace. They still didn't understand. On the Lightning Sword, Admiral Park met with her fleet commanders through hologram. Captain Lee Do-hyun of the Ghost Fleet spoke first. The Keldari think their technology is superior, he said. They don't know about our stealth ships. They don't know how far we've come. They think we're simple creatures ruled by emotion. Admiral Park nodded. Emotion isn't our weakness. It's our strength. Every person in this fleet has seen Hanbai's photo. Every one of them understands why we fight. She stood and looked at the star map showing their fleet positions. Humanity has been peaceful not because we are weak, but because we choose to be. Now they will learn why every species in Earth's history who harmed our children regretted it. The fleet was ready in 36 hours, 12 hours ahead of schedule. Every ship, every weapon. 500 warships hidden in the darkness of space, waiting for the order. In his office on New Busan, Director Song received a message from Admiral Park. We are ready. Justice for Hanbai. He looked out his window at the Keldari ships in orbit. They still didn't look worried. They didn't know that Earth's fleet was about to show them why humans were different, why we protected our children above all else. Admiral Park gave her final order. All ships, begin Operation Child's Dawn. The human fleet moved like a storm in space, ready to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Never harm a human child. The Keldari were about to learn that humanity's love for its children was not a weakness. It was the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Captain Lee Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his Ghost-class destroyer, Silent Justice. Through the main window, he could see hundreds of human ships moving into position. Their hull lights were dark, making them look like shadows against the stars. "Status report," he ordered. His crew worked at their stations, each focused on their tasks. They had trained for years for a moment like this, but no one had thought it would take a child's murder to bring them into real battle. "All ghost ships report ready," his second officer said. "Stealth systems are working perfectly. The Caldari cannot see us." The ghost ships were humanity's secret weapon. They used special technology that made them invisible to all known alien sensors. The Caldari, proud of their advanced technology, didn't think this was possible. On the main screen, Captain Lee watched the enemy positions. The Caldari had sent only 20 ships to defend their space. They still thought humans were just making noise, trying to look strong. "Message from Admiral Park," his communications officer called out. "All ships begin Phase 1. Phase 1 was simple but clever. While the main fleet stayed visible and drew attention, the ghost ships would slip behind enemy lines. They would shut down the Caldari's defense stations before they knew what was happening. In her office on the Lightning Sword, Admiral Park met with her intelligence chief, Officer Yoon Jia. Officer Yoon had been working day and night since Hanbei's death, tracking the corruption that the little girl had accidentally discovered. "Show me what you found," Admiral Park said. Officer Yoon displayed a complex map of connections on the screen. The weapons Hanbai saw being traded were just the tip of the problem. "Master General Vex is part of a bigger plan. They want to take over their own government. So they killed her to keep their plot secret." Admiral Park's voice was cold. "Send this to all ship commanders. They need to know what we're really fighting." In space, the Ghost Fleet moved silently through Caldari defenses. Captain Lee watched as his ships passed right next to enemy patrols. The Caldari ships didn't react at all. They couldn't see the human vessels only kilometers away. "All ghost ships in position," his tactical officer reported. "Ready for Phase 2. Phase 2 was going to show the Caldari their first surprise. Each ghost ship carried special computer programs that could shut down Caldari defense systems. These programs were based on technology that Earth had kept secret for years. On the Caldari command ship, Master General Vex received reports about the human fleet. He wasn't worried. His ships had better weapons, better shields. He thought the humans were just putting on a show. "Let them waste their time," he told his officers. "They'll go home soon enough." He was wrong. Captain Lee gave the order. "Begin Phase 2. Activate shutdown programs." Across Caldari space, their defense stations started going dark. Their mighty weapons powered down. Their shields flickered and died. And they still couldn't see the ships doing it. On the Lightning Sword, Admiral Park watched it all happen. "Send message to all ships. Phase 3 begins in 1 hour." She looked at Hanbai's photo on her screen. The little girl was smiling, holding up a drawing of Earth and Caldari ships flying together in peace. That peace was gone now, destroyed by the same people who had killed her. "Message from Earth Parliament," her communications officer said. "They ask if we need to take such strong action." Admiral Park's answer was firm. "Tell them what the Caldari told us, that we're overreacting about one child's death. Tell them to watch what happens when humanity stops being peaceful." The fleet was ready. The ghost ships were in position. The enemy was blind. Phase 3 would begin soon, and the galaxy would learn why humans had survived so many wars on Earth, why we had grown strong enough to join the stars, and why killing a human child was the worst mistake any species could make. Phase 3 began with silence. The ghost ships struck first, appearing from nowhere next to the Caldari's biggest military bases. Captain Lee's ship, Silent Justice, led the attack on their main defense station. "All weapons ready," his weapons officer reported. "They still can't see us." "Fire." The ghost ships attacked as one. Their new weapons, hidden for years, cut through Caldari shields like they weren't there. In the first 10 minutes, 30 defense stations went dark. No alarms, no warnings, just silence. On his command ship, Master General Vex got the news too late. "What do you mean the stations are gone? Where are the human ships?" "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "ships appearing everywhere. But that's impossible. They're right next to us." The ghost ships became visible all at once. The Keldari saw human warships everywhere they looked. Captain Lee sent a simple message to all Keldari stations. "This is for Hanbai." Admiral Park watched from the lightning sword as Phase 3 unfolded. The main fleet hadn't even moved yet. The ghost ships were doing exactly what they were built for, showing the enemy that humans had teeth they'd never seen. "Message to all ships," she ordered. "Begin main assault." The human fleet moved forward. But they didn't attack cities or civilian areas. Every shot was precise, targeting only military installations. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. "Sir," Captain Lee's sensor officer called out, "Keldari battleships approaching." 5. No, 10 ships. "Let them come," Captain Lee said. "Show them what ghost ships can really do." The battle that followed was short. The Keldari ships fired at the ghost ships, but their weapons couldn't lock on properly. The human ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence, impossible to hit. On his command ship, Master General Vex was finally afraid. "Contact the High Council. Tell them we need reinforcements." But the High Council wasn't answering. Officer Yoon's intelligence team had made sure of that. They had spread the truth about the weapons trading and the planned coup. The council was busy arresting Vex's co-conspirators. "Multiple Keldari ships surrendering," reported the communications officer on the lightning sword. Admiral Park nodded. "Accept their surrender. Remember, everyone, we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice." The ghost ships continued their work. Captain Lee's ship took out 3 Keldari battleships without taking a single hit. The enemy's famous technology meant nothing against weapons they couldn't see coming. In his office on New Busan, Director Song watched the battle through space telescopes. Each flash of light in the sky was humans showing the galaxy why they had survived so long. "Sir," his assistant said softly, "the Keldari diplomats are asking for protection. They're afraid." "Tell them they're safe," Director Song replied. "Humans don't hurt children or civilians. That's what makes us different." The battle lasted less than 2 hours. When it was done, the Keldari military was broken. Not destroyed, just carefully, surgically, taken apart. Every military base, every weapons platform, every secret installation. Master General Vex tried to run. He ordered his command ship to jump to light speed. But when he gave the order, nothing happened. The ghost ships had disabled his engines an hour ago. He just hadn't known it. "Message from the human fleet," his communications officer said, voice shaking. They say a child died afraid and alone. But we're not like you. Come out with your hands up." Captain Lee's ship pulled up alongside Vex's command ship. "Boarding teams ready," his Marine commander reported. "Remember," Captain Lee told the Marines, "we do this by the book." He faces trial. That's the human way. As the Marines moved in to arrest Vex, Admiral Park sent a message to Earth. Phase 3 complete. Military targets neutralized. No civilian casualties. Justice will be done. The galaxy had just learned something important. Humans could have been this dangerous all along. They chose peace not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to be kind. Until someone killed a child. Officer Yoon Jia walked through the captured Keldari command ship, her tablet recording everything. The ship's halls were quiet now. The crew had surrendered without a fight after their leader was caught. In Master General Vex's private office, she found what she was looking for: hidden computer files, secret messages, and records of illegal weapons deals. But there was something bigger here, something that explained why a child had to die. "Admiral," she called through her comlink, "you need to see this." Admiral Park arrived within the hour. Captain Lee came too. They stood in Vex's office as Officer Yoon showed them what she'd found. It wasn't just about weapons, Officer Yoon explained. Vex and his supporters were planning to take over their whole government. The weapons HFY saw were just a small part. She showed them more files on her tablet. They were going to start a civil war, take control of the Caldari Federation. That's why they killed her. Not just to hide the weapons, but to hide their whole plan. Admiral Park's face got harder with each new piece of evidence. How many people were involved? Hundreds, Officer Yoon said. Many of them are high-ranking military officers and government officials. But here's the interesting part. The Caldari public didn't know anything about this. Captain Lee looked at the files. So when we attacked their military bases, we weren't just getting justice for HFY, Officer Yoon finished. We were stopping a coup without even knowing it. Admiral Park made a quick decision. Send all of this to the Caldari public news networks. Their people deserve to know the truth. Within hours, the information spread across Caldari space. Regular citizens learned how their military leaders had killed a human child to hide their plans for taking power. They learned how these same leaders had been ready to start a civil war that would have killed thousands. The response was immediate. Caldari citizens took to the streets, demanding justice. They weren't angry at the humans anymore. They were angry at their own leaders who had brought this on them. In his cell on the Lightning Sword, Master General Vex watched on a screen as his plans fell apart. His supporters were being arrested by their own people. The coup he had planned for years was over before it began. Why? Officer Yoon asked him during questioning. Why kill a child? You could have just destroyed her tablet. Vex looked confused. She was just one child. I didn't think humans would react so strongly. In our society, we focus on the group, not individuals. That's where you made your mistake, Officer Yoon said. To humans, every child matters, every single one. On New Busan, Director Song received the reports about what his daughter had accidentally uncovered. She had seen something she shouldn't have, yes. But that something had been far bigger than anyone knew. The Caldari High Council, now free of Vex's supporters, sent an official message to Earth. They would hand over everyone involved in HFY's death. They would pay compensation to her family. They would accept human justice. But more importantly, they finally understood. They saw how humans could be both strong and gentle, how they could win a war without destroying cities, how they protected children above all else. Send a message to all ships, Admiral Park ordered. The truth about HFY's death is now known to everyone. But remember, we're here for justice, not revenge. That's what makes us human. Officer Yoon finished gathering evidence. Everything was ready for the trials that would come. But as she worked, she kept thinking about how one little girl with a tablet had changed everything. HFY had seen something strange and wanted to tell her father. She had been brave and honest, just as she had been taught. In trying to silence her, her killers had instead made her voice louder than ever. The galaxy now knew 3 important things about humans. They were stronger than anyone knew. They could show mercy even in victory. They would cross the galaxy to get justice for a single child. As night fell on New Busan, the human fleet stood guard. Justice was coming. And the truth had finally emerged from darkness. 1 month after the human fleet showed its power, the trials began on Earth. The courtroom in Geneva was full. Representatives from every spacefaring species came to watch. They wanted to see how humans would handle justice. Master General Vex and his conspirators sat in the defendant's area. They wore simple gray clothes instead of their crystal armor. They looked small now, nothing like the proud warriors they had been. Director Song and his wife sat in the front row. This was the first time they had seen their daughter's killers face to face. They held hands tightly as the trial began. The court calls its first witness, the judge announced. The security eye of New Busan Diplomatic Complex. A hologram appeared in the witness stand. It took the shape of a glowing blue sphere. The AI spoke clearly, sharing every detail of that terrible night. It showed recordings of HFY's last moments, how she had tried to run, how she had called for help. Many people in the courtroom cried. Even some Kildare observers lowered their heads in shame. When Vex's turn came to speak, he tried to explain. In our culture, the group matters more than any individual. I didn't understand. The judge cut him off. Understanding is not the same as innocence. You knew killing children was wrong. You chose to do it anyway. The trial lasted 3 days. In the end, the verdict was clear: guilty. The sentence came next. The human way is justice, not revenge. The judge said, "You will spend the rest of your lives in prison, thinking about what you did. But more importantly, you will spend that time teaching others about your mistake." The judge explained. Every year, Vex and his conspirators would have to tell their story to Kildare children. They would explain how their actions almost started a war, how killing one human child showed the galaxy humanity's true strength. After the trial, something unexpected happened. The Kildare High Council asked to speak to Earth's Parliament. They had a request that surprised everyone. "We want to learn from humans," they said. "We want to understand how you can be so strong in war, but so gentle in peace, how you balance justice and mercy." Admiral Park stood in the Parliament chamber again. This time, she wasn't planning a war. She was helping build a better peace. "Send teachers," she suggested. "Send families. Let our children play together again." That's how understanding grows. On New Buzan, in the garden where Hanbai died, something beautiful grew from tragedy. The Kildare and humans worked together to build a special place. They called it the Garden of the Child. The garden had flowers from Earth and Kildare. In the center stood a statue of a little girl holding a tablet, surrounded by alien and human children playing together. At night, the flowers glowed softly, like stars brought down to Earth. Director Song and his wife visited the garden often. One day, they found something that made them smile through their tears. Kildare children had left their toys around the statue. They had heard Hanbai's story and decided she needed things to play with. 5 years later, Officer Yoon visited the garden. She found Captain Lee there, showing his young daughter the flowers. "The Kildare changed a lot since then," Officer Yoon said. "They understand us better now." Captain Lee nodded. "They learned that strength isn't just about weapons. Sometimes it's about what you choose not to do." Admiral Park retired that year. At her retirement ceremony, she said something that became famous across the galaxy. "We showed them our strength, but more importantly, we showed them our hearts, because that's what Hanbai would have wanted, not revenge, but understanding." The ghost ships still patrol human space, protecting the peace, but they're not secrets anymore. Now they stand as reminders. Humans prefer peace, but they will cross the galaxy to protect a child. In the Garden of the Child, the flowers still glow at night. Children of all species play there, leaving toys for a little girl who changed the galaxy. And on a small plaque, written in every known language, are these words: "Hanbai Song." She showed us that the smallest voice can change the greatest hearts, and that justice comes not from hatred, but from love.